Sunday dinner at the old farmhouse table, but Patricia's smile was too sharp for gravy and small talk.
We sold the workshop. The paperwork's already done.
180,000. It's already signed, Dad. Patricia needs this for her business.
Thomas's fork stopped midair. His calloused hands, 43 years of aircraft parts, began to tremble.
That concrete, she doesn't know. How could she?
Look staging will launch in weeks. The buyers want the land by Friday.
The gravy boat sat untouched. The ticking of the wall clock grew louder than any voice. Thomas stared past his son at the wall, the same wall his wife had painted daffodil yellow in 1974. He set his fork down with a click that cut the silence, pushed back his chair, and walked out of the room. Behind him, David and Patricia exchanged a look, irritation, or relief, or both. They didn't see the door to the workshop swing shut in his mind. Thomas pulled into the gravel lot, the workshop door gaping like a wound in the dusk. He pushed the heavy steel door. The air inside was cold, carrying the ghost of cutting oil.
43 years building Boeing parts in this tomb, they sold it for 180,000.
Vintage wrenches hung in perfect order. A single Boeing component, never shipped, still on the shelf.
That part? I machined it the week Eleanor got her diagnosis. She said finish it anyway.
Beside the drill press, a yellowed photograph, Eleanor in 1974, arms crossed, laughing outside the workshop door. He walked to the center of the concrete pad, the flashlight beam picking out the crack he'd memorized.
I poured this floor 10 days after I signed that sealed document. I never opened it. Never will.
He knelt, hand pressing flat against the cold concrete. His breathing shallow, the weight of decades in his shoulders. Darkness swallowed the workshop. Thomas stayed there on his knees as the last light died. Thomas pushed himself off the concrete, an old pain flaring in his knees. He pulled out a battered flip phone and dialed.
Tom, what's wrong? You sound like you've been standing in the dark too long.
The boys sold the workshop, George. I need you here tonight. Bring a sledgehammer.
You're finally opening it. I'll bring the heavy sledge.
No, I'm making sure it stays buried. I can't do this alone.
I'll be there in 20. Don't touch anything before I get there.
I won't. And George, thank you.
He ended the call. The workshop swallowed the silence. 20 minutes. He could wait 20 minutes. His eyes found the old Marine Corps photo taped to the pegboard. Two men 40 years ago, arms locked, forever too young. Thomas gripped the phone, knuckles white, and sank onto a crate. The concrete beneath him held the answer, and its weight was unbearable. Headlights cut through the workshop's grimy window. The rumble of George's pickup died in the gravel.
You look like hell, Tom. Step back from the concrete and breathe.
No time. They want this land by Friday, the pad. I need to know if it's still there.
George followed Thomas inside, his heavy boots echoing on the floor. He studied the concrete with a veteran's precision.
Right there? The same spot we swore never to open?
The same spot. I poured it myself. If it's gone, then everything Eleanor and I buried dies with the sale.
In the corner, a sledgehammer and crowbar leaned against the wall like soldiers waiting for orders.
We crack it open. We wake up 40 years of silence. You ready for what's down there?
No, but I'm ready to lose my son.
Thomas wrapped his weathered hands around the sledgehammer. The weight felt like a lifetime of secrets. The sledgehammer arced down. A sharp crack split the silence, and dust bloomed where the concrete fractured.
71, I was a Marine. They gave me a sealed envelope and a footlocker. Bury it under the slab. Forget it exists.
Another swing. Spiderweb cracks raced outward, and Thomas's voice turned raw with memory.
The order was signed under a retroactive national security clause. I didn't open it, couldn't.
George hefted his own sledge, his swing driving the steel deeper into the slab. The concrete groaned, chunks breaking loose in jagged plates, revealing dark, undisturbed earth beneath.
Still there, Eleanor helped me mix this cement. She knew.
You hit it well. Now we see if the government still cares.
They tossed shattered concrete aside, sweat dripping, until the hole widened enough to show the raw soil, 43 years untouched. Beneath the wreckage, the earth waited, holding its secret like a promise Thomas had never broken, not even for his son. Thomas drove the shovel into the dark soil, the blade disappearing with a hush.
Every shovelful felt like digging through my own chest. She warned me this day would come.
George's shovel rang against something solid. The sharp clang froze both men.
That's steel. No rock sounds like that.
Thomas dropped to his knees, brushing soil aside with calloused fingers until the rusted lid of a footlocker stared back at him.
43 years, it hasn't moved an inch.
Together they dug around the edges, the old steel groaning as they pried the footlocker from its dirt grave. With a final heave, the footlocker came free, heavy enough to bend a man's back, its padlock still mocking the night.
I sealed this hole the day after Eleanor smiled for that photo. Now I'm opening it without her.
The footlocker sat on the workshop floor, dirt clinging to its rust, holding a silence that neither man dared break. George cut the rusted padlock with a single bolt-cutter snap. The lid groaned open, exhaling 40-year-old air. Inside, stacked in crisp military order, were yellowed battlefield reports and a thick envelope marked with a crimson dia stamp.
A numbered commendation. I never even looked at it before I buried this box.
That seal's still intact. This isn't just old paperwork, Tom. It's still classified.
Thomas lifted the metal with trembling, dirt-stained fingers. The ribbon's colors had faded, but the number on the back was still sharp.
They told me this land would be protected under some retroactive clause. I never opened anything. I just followed orders.
George shone his flashlight on the DIA envelope, the red letters reading, "To be opened only by authority of the Secretary of Defense."
If that clause is still active, a civilian sale could trigger a federal hold. We need to photograph everything.
Thomas ran his thumb over the metal's edge, then set it carefully back in the footlocker as if it might break. The footlocker's open lid cast a shadow across the floor. The past had become a weapon neither man yet knew how to aim.
I'm calling my guy at the Pentagon. Right now, Tom, that clause makes this sale illegal.
If I do this, David loses his money. If I don't, the footlocker opens a wound neither of us can close.
George already had his phone out, dialing from memory, a number that went straight to the 5th floor of the Pentagon. The call connected. 3,000 miles away, a desk officer picked up a line that rarely rang.
Major, it's George. We've got a situation, a sealed DIA dossier and a retroactive clause still active. Civilian sale is pending.
The voice on the other end asked 3 sharp questions. George answered each with the precision of a JAG officer.
I'm sending you photographs of the envelope, the reports, and the commendation number. Tell me what we're sitting on.
Thomas watched George send the images, flashlit documents, and a numbered medal into the ether, toward a decision that could undo everything.
She told me to bury it deep. Now I've handed it to the whole Department of Defense.
George ended the call. They'll run it up the chain. Could be hours, could be days. The workshop fell into a silence heavier than before. Across town, a wine bar hummed with easy laughter. David and Patricia raised their glasses, the sale already cashed in their minds.
To Lux Staging, Week 1, we're staging 3 luxury properties. This money is exactly what we needed.
She swiped through design renderings on her phone, sterile, glowing rooms that hadn't seen a single moving box yet.
He should be thrilled. Instead, a cold knot tightened every time she mentioned the workshop.
David, stop brooding. Your dad is practical. He'll see the logic.
She never saw him at the mill. Didn't know how he talked to a lathe.
To the easiest 180 grand you'll ever make.
Their glasses clinked, bright and final, like a signature neither had read twice. Her startup office still sat empty, branded with a logo that promised luxury but owed more than it owned. For one more night, the concrete held its tongue. They toasted a future that was already crumbling beneath them. An hour before dawn, George's phone shattered the silence. The caller ID flashed a 5-digit Pentagon extension.
Go ahead. Understood. The clause is still binding.
George listened, his jaw tightening with every syllable from the other end of the line.
A federal hold will be slapped on the title within the hour. Sales frozen. Verification team deploys in 72.
Frozen. Not voided. David will get the call any minute now.
Thomas's hands, still caked in dirt, rested on the open footlocker as if anchoring himself to the past.
It's temporary. They'll verify the material, then invoke the full retroactive protection. But for now, nobody sells this land.
Within minutes, an encrypted document landed in George's email. Federal hold, Property 14781, National Security Clause invoked.
43 years I kept my word. Now the government's keeping it for me.
The footlocker sat between them like a third man at a wake. The sale was still alive on paper, but the roof had just caught fire. Monday morning coffee untouched. David's phone buzzed. The real estate agent's name flashed with urgency.
They froze the sale? What do you mean a federal hold?
The agent's voice rattled on about a national security clause nobody had run in the title search.
Patricia, the sale's frozen. A government hold on the land. The buyer's about to walk.
It's a paperwork glitch, David. Call the title company and fix it.
A federal hold isn't a glitch. This is something else entirely.
He hung up and burned through 4 more calls. Attorney, title office, escrow. Each answer came back thinner and colder. The attorney's reply was blunt. The hold originated from the Pentagon, tied to a retroactive clause predating the sale.
The Pentagon? What connection could my father's workshop possibly have to the Pentagon?
David stared at his phone. The wine bar dread, now a lead weight. For the first time, he wondered what his father had never told him. A dark sedan pulled into the gravel. The man who stepped out wore a plain suit but carried the weight of a federal badge.
Thomas Sullivan? I'm here to serve the federal hold on this property. The Pentagon flagged a retroactive clause you signed in 1971.
I know what I signed. I've been expecting you.
The materials you buried are still classified. This land cannot be sold, leased, or transferred while they remain here.
The agent handed Thomas a heavy envelope sealed with the Department of Defense insignia. The hold was now physical.
Sign here acknowledging receipt. A verification team will arrive within days. Until then, the hold is active.
Thomas signed with the same hand that had poured that concrete in 1973. His name looked small on the government form.
I'd advise you to keep those items secure. Any unauthorized disclosure could complicate matters.
They'll come back with a full team. The hold will go public. David is going to lose his mind.
Thomas stared at the open footlocker, the metal glinting faintly in the worklight. The storm he'd buried was finally above ground. Patricia's phone lit up with the investor's name. The call lasted 42 seconds. When she lowered the phone, her hand was shaking.
They pulled the funding. The federal hold froze the collateral. Lux Staging is dead before it ever opened a door.
We can find another investor. We just need time to.
Time? You never checked the history of your own father's land. He buried government secrets, and you were too clueless to know.
He never told me anything. I didn't know.
Because you never ask. You never push. That's why he hid it from you. That's why he'll always see you as a boy.
The last word hung between them like a verdict. David's mouth opened, but no defense came.
I'm going to the office. Whatever's left of it. You figure out how to fix this if you can.
Patricia slammed the door. In the sudden silence, David stood alone, his reflection pale in the dark window. Before the week ended, a bank envelope arrived, thick, cold, unopened. carrying the first formal step toward foreclosure on a business that had never sold a single room. David's car threw gravel as it skidded to a stop in front of his father's house. The porch light was already on.
David, I've been waiting.
What did you do? The sale is dead. The Pentagon froze everything because of something you buried under that concrete.
I kept a promise. That's all I can tell you right now.
A promise? You destroyed Patricia's business. You destroyed my marriage. You never told me anything.
Thomas's jaw tightened, but he didn't defend himself. The silence was louder than any excuse.
You could have warned me. You could have stopped this before it started. Instead, you let me walk into a minefield.
Thomas held his ground, but his eyes glistened under the bare bulb. He didn't look away.
I'm done. Don't call me.
The car door slammed. The engine roared and faded. Thomas stood frozen in the doorway long after the taillights vanished. On the drive home, David's phone lit up. The realtor's message was blunt. The buyer had pulled out, citing the unresolved federal hold. The sale was void. He walked into a dark house. The silence felt physical, pressing against his chest like the weight of his father's silence.
It's over, David. The LLC is filing Chapter 7. My investor's gone. And so am I.
Patricia, please, we can still...
She snatched a bag from the closet, already packed. Not a word more. Only the click of heels on hardwood, then the door. Headlights swept the window as her sedan reversed and sped into the night. The taillights disappeared like a signature on a divorce decree. David stood in the vacuum, the room scattered with half-unpacked boxes of a business that never opened a single door. That same afternoon, a bankruptcy court envelope was slid under the glass door of Lux Staging, the first official admission of failure. He replayed his father's words, "I kept a promise." The phrase no longer sounded like sabotage. It sounded like a lock that had been waiting 43 years for a key. For the first time since Sunday dinner, David didn't feel fury. He felt the slow, cold shape of a question he should have asked years ago. The final Department of Defense envelope arrived with a crimson permanent stamp. Inside, the language was absolute. The land was voided under a clause Thomas had signed in 1971, and it could never be sold. George poured 2 fingers of bourbon into a chipped coffee mug and set it on the crate beside Thomas.
It's over, Tom. The government finally kept its end of the deal.
Promise? I've been a vault 43 years, but Eleanor knew. She was the only one who ever asked.
Thomas's gaze drifted to his metal toolbox. He hadn't opened it since the day of Eleanor's funeral. He lifted the lid and pulled out a faded Polaroid Eleanor in front of these doors, the day after they poured the slab.
She mixed the cement that afternoon. We took this picture, then I locked the footlocker inside the foundation.
She was a good woman, Tom. The best. Never asked for glory.
She knew. You never asked. Words I've been saving for David, if he ever deserves to hear them.
Thomas slid the Polaroid back into the toolbox and closed the lid. The workshop fell silent, holding its breath for the next knock. David's car rolled into the driveway without throwing gravel. He knocked on the front door with the weight of a man who had lost everything.
Dad, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know any of it.
Thomas opened the door wider. The sight of his son, eyes red, no jacket, shoulders slumped, cut deeper than any anger.
Dad, please, what was buried under that slab? Why did it destroy everything I built?
Because it's not about the money. It's about a promise your mother and I made before you were born.
He led David across the frozen grass toward the workshop. The door was already open, the work light spilling out like a confession. Inside, the footlocker sat on the bench, its contents still exposed. Thomas gestured toward it.
Open it. Look for yourself. I've never opened that sealed DIA envelope, but the rest is there.
David stepped forward, his reflection caught in the metal's tarnished bronze.
It's time you knew who I really was, son. In 1971, I was just a Marine following orders. They handed me this footlocker and told me to bury it under anything I built. That envelope is Dia, still sealed. I never knew what was inside, and I never will.
David looked from the battlefield reports to the commendation. His father had been carrying a classified war beneath his feet his whole life. Thomas opened his toolbox and pulled out the Polaroid Eleanor smiling at the workshop in 1974.
She knew what was under the slab. She helped me pour it. She never asked me to open it. She knew the man I was. She knew. You never asked.
David's face crumpled. He stared at his mother's smile, then at the metal, and the weight of 40 years hit him.
Dad, I'm so sorry. I never asked. I never even tried.
Thomas pulled his son into a fierce hug. The metal pressed between them, cold and real. The Polaroid rested on the bench, Eleanor still smiling, as if she had been waiting for this day. They sat together on the old crate, the open footlocker at their feet, the Polaroid resting on Thomas's knee.
Tell me about her that day, Dad. What was she like when you poured the slab?
She laughed when I overturned the wheelbarrow, cement all over my boots. She said I looked like a statue.
Thomas pointed toward the workshop door, the same one Eleanor had leaned against in the photograph.
She knew everything, didn't she? How did she keep a secret like that?
Because she loved the man I was, not the Marine I had to be. She trusted that one day you'd be here asking.
David lifted the Polaroid, tracing his mother's smile with a trembling finger. He saw a whole life he'd missed.
You didn't miss it, son. You just weren't looking in the right place.
For the first time in years, the workshop felt full, not of tools, but of the three people who had built it. They sat in silence, the Polaroid between them, the metal in the footlocker, and nothing needed to be said. Weeks later, the hole in the workshop floor was gone, fresh gray concrete dried smooth under the worklight. David, sleeves rolled to his elbows, guided the trowel under his father's quiet instruction. His hands were learning the language of the lathe.
Keep the edge steady. This machine doesn't forgive, but it'll teach you patience.
Like you taught me patience for 40 years? I'm listening now.
That afternoon, they hung a fresh wooden sign above the workshop door, Thomas and Son in clean black letters. The door stood open, morning sun spilling across the old bowing shelves, now holding new steel ready for the lathe.
Your mother would have liked that sign. She always said this place wasn't just mine.
The footlocker, now empty, but for the metal and the sealed envelope, sat on the top shelf like a retired sentinel.
It's good to be home. I should have come back years ago.
Thomas put a hand on David's shoulder, and for the first time in a decade, the workshop hummed with more than electricity. Evening light slanted through the dusty windows. George's pickup rolled in, the engine cutting with a familiar cough.
Brought a six-pack. Figured the new sign deserved a toast.
David handed him a cold bottle, and the three settled on crates, surrounded by the smell of oil and old iron.
I ever tell you about the time your dad carried a 200-pound radio man across a frozen rice paddy? Did it without a word.
Thomas quietly polished the commendation medal with a soft rag, the bronze catching the last of the sunset.
He never told me about that. I guess he never told me about anything important.
You're hearing it now. That's what matters.
George raised his bottle. The gesture said everything: forgiveness, history, and three men who had finally come home. Thomas set the medal back in the footlocker, its number still sharp, its duty finally complete. Outside, the sun slipped below the 5 acres, painting the workshop in gold that felt earned. Morning light filled the workshop, catching dust motes that had settled for 43 years. Thomas stood alone, the faded Polaroid cradled in his calloused hand. He placed it beside the open footlocker, where the metal and the sealed envelope still rested. His thumb traced the edge of Eleanor's smile, and a faint smile touched his own lips. The workbench held 3 lives now: the machinist, the Marine, the wife who loved both. No secrets remained under the floor, only a promise kept across half a century. The workshop door stood open, Morning sun spilling across the 5 acres. A place that had almost been sold now stood as a place that would never leave the family. In the stillness, a lathe started to turn, the first notes of a new chapter. The Polaroid caught the light, Eleanor still smiling, and the screen faded to black.